Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. The marketplace doesn't reward loyalty. It rewards value. If you don't reinvent yourself, you don't stay safe. You stay replaceable. The world is not waiting on you. Technology is evolving. Skills are evolving. Industries are evolving. And if you're not growing, you're shrinking. There is no neutral. You think your job protects you? It doesn't. You think your experience guarantees you security? It doesn't. You think working hard is enough? It's not. The people who win are the people who upgrade. They study, they adapt, they build new skills before the old ones expire. If you're not becoming more valuable every single year, you're becoming more optional, and optional people get replaced. So the real question isn't, will things change? The real question is, will you? Let me say something that might challenge the way you've been thinking about your life and your work. The marketplace does not pay you for effort. It pays you for value. And those two things are not the same. You can work 12 hours a day and still be underpaid. You can sweat, sacrifice, and stay busy and still be replaceable. Why? Because effort is common. Value is rare. The marketplace doesn't ask, how tired are you? It asks, what problem can you solve? If two people work equally hard, but one can solve a $10,000 problem and the other can only solve a $10 problem, who gets paid more? Not the harder worker, the more valuable one. This is why reinvention matters. Reinvention is about upgrading the size of problems you're capable of solving. Most people try to increase their income without increasing their value. That's backwards. Income is a byproduct. Value is the source. If you want to stop being replaceable, stop focusing on how hard you're working and start focusing on how useful you're becoming. Let me break it down for you. A company doesn't keep you because you show up on time. A company keeps you because losing you would cost them more than paying you. That's value. When your absence creates a gap that's expensive to fill, you are no longer optional. But if someone can train another person to do what you do in 2 weeks, then no matter how loyal you've been, you are replaceable. That's not harsh. That's reality. The world rewards scarcity. If what you do is common, your pay will reflect that. If what you do is rare and impactful, your compensation rises automatically. So the real question becomes, what are you mastering that other people avoid? Are you learning communication while others scroll? Are you studying sales while others complain? Are you developing leadership while others gossip? Because the more responsibility you can carry, the more problems you can solve, and the more revenue you can generate or protect, the more valuable you become. And here's something powerful. Value is not about your job title. It's about your skill set. Titles can be taken, skills cannot. You might lose a position, but you cannot lose the ability to persuade. You cannot lose the ability to negotiate. You cannot lose the ability to lead. Those are portable assets. That's reinvention. When you reinvent yourself, you're not just learning something new for fun. You're intentionally increasing your economic worth. You're making it dangerous for the marketplace to ignore you. Think about this. The person who brings in clients will never be treated the same as the person who just processes paperwork. The person who can close deals will never worry the same way the person who waits for instructions does. Why? Because revenue generators are rarely replaceable. If you want leverage, learn how money moves. Learn how decisions are made. Learn how influence works, because influence multiplies value, and value creates security. But let's go deeper. Value isn't only financial. It's relational, it's intellectual, it's strategic. If you become the person who can connect people, clarify confusion, and create solutions, you become indispensable in any environment. The mistake most people make is thinking, I've been here for 10 years, I'm safe. Time does not equal value. Growth equals value. If you are the same professional you were 5 years ago, you are behind. The world moved, technology advanced, standards increased, and if you didn't upgrade, your relevance decreased. Even if your paycheck didn't show it yet, reinvention means you don't wait until you're forced to change. You anticipate change. You prepare for it. You get ahead of it. You study industries before they shift. You build skills before they're demanded. You position yourself before opportunity knocks. That's how you go from replaceable to required. And here's the part most people overlook. Increasing your value increases your confidence. When you know you can solve problems at a high level, you stop negotiating from fear. You stop begging for opportunities. You start choosing environments that respect what you bring to the table, because now you know your worth isn't based on hope. It's based on capability. The marketplace is simple. It exchanges money for solutions. The bigger the solution, the bigger the exchange. So if you want a bigger life, become a bigger solution. Stop asking, how can I work harder? Start asking, how can I become more valuable? Because when you increase your value, you increase your options. And when you increase your options, you eliminate replaceability. If you want to secure your future, don't chase comfort. Chase capability. Become so valuable that losing you becomes too expensive. Let me tell you something most people learn too late. Growth is not a luxury. It's not a motivational slogan. It's not something you pursue when you feel inspired. Growth is survival. You are either growing or you are declining. There is no such thing as staying the same. That's a lie we tell ourselves to feel comfortable. But comfort is expensive. Comfort costs you relevance. Comfort costs you opportunity. Comfort eventually costs you security. The world does not slow down so you can catch up. Technology is advancing. Industries are shifting. Artificial intelligence is replacing tasks. Systems are becoming more efficient. And if you are not intentionally expanding your skills and your thinking, you are unintentionally shrinking in value. You don't fall behind in one dramatic moment. You fall behind quietly, gradually. One skipped book, one avoided challenge, 1 year of I'll do it later, and later always shows up with consequences. Most people wait for pain before they grow. They wait until they lose the job, until the business struggles, until the income drops, until the crisis forces adaptation. But winners don't wait for pressure. They apply pressure to themselves. Growth by choice is always cheaper than growth by crisis. If you wait until you are desperate to reinvent yourself, you've already lost leverage. When you grow before you have to, you stay ahead of the curve. When you grow after you're forced to, you're playing defense. And defense doesn't create dominance. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt uncomfortable because you were stretching? When was the last time you studied something that challenged your thinking? When was the last time you deliberately put yourself in a room where you weren't the smartest person there? Because growth lives on the other side of discomfort. Comfort tells you you're fine. Growth tells you you can be better. Comfort says relax. Growth says prepare. And the people who choose comfort over preparation always pay for it later. You cannot dominate in a dynamic world with a static mindset. The marketplace rewards adaptability. It rewards people who can pivot, adjust, and evolve without losing momentum. Think about it. The companies that survive are the ones that innovate. The leaders who stay relevant are the ones who keep learning. The entrepreneurs who win are the ones who anticipate change instead of resisting it. So why would your personal life operate differently? If you are not reading, someone else is. If you are not studying your industry, someone else is. If you are not building new skills, someone else is. And when opportunity shows up, it won't go to the most loyal. It won't go to the most tired. It will go to the most prepared. Preparation is growth in action. Here's the truth. The version of you that created your current results is not necessarily the version required to create your next level. That means reinvention isn't optional. It's required. New income requires new thinking. New influence requires new discipline. New results require new habits. If you try to hold on to old patterns while expecting new outcomes, you create frustration. Growth demands change. Change demands humility. And humility demands that you admit you don't know everything. Pride keeps people stagnant. Curiosity keeps people expanding. You have to develop an obsession with improvement, not because it sounds good, but because it protects you. When your skills expand, your confidence expands. When your confidence expands, your courage expands. And when your courage expands, you take bigger actions. And bigger actions create bigger outcomes. The world belongs to learners. It belongs to people who treat every year like a training ground. It belongs to people who don't assume their degree, their title, or their experience is enough. Enough is a dangerous word. Enough thinking leads to average results. Enough effort leads to replaceability. Enough growth leads to irrelevance. If you want to stay irreplaceable, you must outgrow your previous self continuously. That means setting standards higher than your environment requires. It means developing skills before your boss asks for them. It means building income streams before you need them. It means strengthening discipline before life tests you, because life will test you. And when it does, the only thing that will protect you is the growth you invested in before the storm arrived. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control industry disruption. You cannot control sudden change, but you can control your development. And when you commit to daily growth, even small, consistent improvements, you create compound results. One book becomes 10. One skill becomes leverage. One habit becomes identity. Eventually, people start saying, "You're lucky," but it's not luck. It's preparation meeting opportunity. Growth is survival because the world will not pause for you. It will not negotiate with your comfort. It will not reward your excuses. If you are not moving forward on purpose, you are drifting backward by default. So decide now, not when you feel like it, not when you're forced to. Now. Choose growth before you need it. Let me shift your focus to something deeper than skills, deeper than strategy, deeper than income. Because before your income ever changes, your identity has to change. And most people try to upgrade their bank account without ever upgrading the way they see themselves. Your income will rarely outperform your identity for long. You can get lucky, you can have a good month, you can even have a good year. But if your self-image doesn't align with that new level, you will subconsciously bring yourself back down to what feels familiar. That's why some people make more money and then lose it. That's why some people rise fast and fall faster. Their skills increased, but their identity didn't. If you still see yourself as average, you will perform at an average level, even with extraordinary opportunities. Reinvention starts in the mind. It starts with the decision that who you have been is not who you must remain. It starts when you stop introducing yourself by your past limitations and start defining yourself by your future potential. Most people identify with their history. I've always been shy. I'm not good with money. I'm just not a leader. Those statements sound harmless, but they are identity anchors. And whatever you anchor to, you live up to or down to. When you say, "I'm not good at sales," your brain stops looking for ways to improve in sales. When you say, "I'm bad with discipline," your actions align with that belief. Identity drives behavior. So if you want a higher income, you must first become the kind of person who earns it. That means you stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes for opportunities and start seeing yourself as someone who creates them. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits for instructions and start seeing yourself as someone who leads initiatives. You stop seeing yourself as a consumer and start seeing yourself as a producer, because producers get paid differently. Here's the truth. The marketplace responds to confidence that is backed by competence. But competence grows faster when confidence is rooted in identity. If you see yourself as a high-value individual, you begin to ask higher-level questions. You invest in your growth. You protect your time. You choose your environment carefully. You say no to distractions because they no longer match who you believe you are becoming. Identity sets the standard. If you identify as someone who is constantly improving, then growth becomes natural. If you identify as someone who delivers excellence, then mediocrity becomes uncomfortable. If you identify as someone who solves problems, you start looking for bigger problems to solve, and bigger problems come with bigger paydays. Many people are trying to change habits without changing identity. They're trying to wake up earlier without deciding they are disciplined. They're trying to make more money without deciding they are valuable. They're trying to lead without deciding they are leaders. Behavior modification without identity transformation is temporary. But when identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. Think about it this way. If you see yourself as a professional, you prepare differently. You dress differently. You speak differently. You study differently. No one has to force you. It flows from who you believe you are. So the question isn't just, what skills do I need? The deeper question is, who do I need to become? Because the version of you that earned your current results is perfectly designed to maintain them. If you want more, you must become more. More disciplined, more focused, more skilled, more responsible. And responsibility is a big one. High income follows high responsibility. If you avoid responsibility, you avoid income. If you embrace responsibility, you expand your capacity. But you will never consistently carry greater responsibility if you still see yourself as small. You have to expand your internal self-concept before you can expand your external results. That might mean letting go of old circles that reinforce your past identity. It might mean changing how you speak about yourself. It might mean stepping into rooms where you feel slightly uncomfortable because you're stretching into the next version of you. Reinvention is not cosmetic, it's internal. You don't just learn new information, you adopt a new standard. You don't just read books, you become a reader. You don't just practice leadership, you become a leader. And once identity shifts, income eventually follows. Because now you negotiate differently, you position yourself differently, you pursue opportunities differently, you stop shrinking in rooms, you stop apologizing for your ambition, you stop playing small to make other people comfortable. You understand that your growth serves more than just you. It serves your family, it serves your community, it serves the people who need the solutions you're capable of creating. Upgrading your identity is not arrogance, it's alignment. Alignment between who you are becoming and what you are capable of earning. If you want to stop being replaceable, you must stop thinking like someone who is easily replaced. You must carry yourself like an asset, not an expense, because the world will treat you the way you train it to treat you. And you train it by the identity you choose to live from. Become the person who earns the life you want. Let me tell you why some people stay relevant for decades while others disappear in a few years. It's not luck. It's not connections. It's not even talent. It's the speed at which they learn. The world is moving faster than it ever has before. Industries are evolving in months instead of years. Technology is replacing tasks that used to require entire departments. Information is doubling at a pace that would have been unimaginable a generation ago. And in a world that moves this fast, the slow learner becomes the forgotten professional. If your rate of learning is slower than the rate of change, you will always be catching up. And people who are always catching up rarely lead. You cannot rely on what you learned 5 years ago to sustain you 5 years from now. The degree that once made you competitive is now common. The skill that once made you valuable is now automated. The strategy that once worked flawlessly is now outdated. So the question isn't whether change is happening. The question is whether your growth rate matches it. If you want to stay irreplaceable, you must develop the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn faster than the environment shifts. Learning is not just reading information. It's applying insight. It's testing ideas. It's refining skill through repetition. It's adjusting quickly when something doesn't work. The marketplace doesn't reward what you know. It rewards what you can execute. There are people who consume content all day but never increase their income. Why? Because consumption without implementation is entertainment. Implementation is transformation. When you learn something new, you should immediately ask, How do I apply this? When you hear a strategy, you should test it. When you gain insight, you should integrate it into your systems. Speed matters. The faster you can take an idea and turn it into action, the more valuable you become. Think about the people who dominate any field. They are not necessarily the oldest. They are not necessarily the most experienced. They are often the most adaptable. They see change coming and they adjust before everyone else even acknowledges it. While others are debating whether something will work, they are experimenting. While others are complaining about disruption, they are studying it. While others resist, they prepare. That's how you create leverage. If you work in sales, study persuasion at a deeper level than your competitors. If you run a business, understand marketing beyond the surface. If you're an employee, learn the financial drivers of the company, not just your daily tasks. The more layers of understanding you build, the harder you are to replace, because now you're not just doing a job. You understand the system, and people who understand systems control outcomes. Let me challenge you with this. How much time do you spend upgrading your skills compared to how much time you spend being entertained? Because whatever dominates your time will eventually dominate your results. If you give 1 hour a day to deliberate learning, that's 365 hours a year. That's the equivalent of weeks of full-time skill development. Do that consistently for 3 years, and you will not recognize the person you've become. But most people wait for formal training. They wait for someone to send them to a seminar. They wait for permission to grow. And by the time they realize they need it, someone else has already mastered it. You cannot outsource your growth. You must become obsessed with sharpening your edge. Read beyond your field. Study human behavior. Understand negotiation. Improve communication. Learn how money flows. Build digital literacy. Strengthen critical thinking. When your learning speed increases, your earning speed follows. And here's the hidden advantage. Fast learners recover faster. When the market shifts unexpectedly, they adjust quickly. When a strategy fails, they pivot. When a new opportunity emerges, they recognize it early. Slow learners freeze. Fast learners adapt. The goal is not to know everything. The goal is to be agile. The goal is to stay curious. The goal is to remain teachable, even when you become successful. Because the moment you think you've arrived, you begin to decline. Humility accelerates learning. Pride slows it down. If you walk into every room believing you have something to learn, you will never stop growing. And if you never stop growing, you never become obsolete. Your competition is not just the person next to you, it's automation, it's innovation, it's global talent. The person willing to study longer and adapt faster will always have the advantage. So ask yourself daily, what did I learn today that increases my value tomorrow? Not what did I scroll, not what did I watch. What did I learn and apply? Because in this economy, security doesn't come from stability. It comes from agility. When your ability to learn outruns the speed of change, you stop fearing the future. You start shaping it. Learn faster than the world changes. Let me bring this home, because everything we've talked about, value, growth, identity, learning, comes down to one thing: decision. Reinvention is not something that happens to you. It's something you choose. Most people treat change like it's weather. They wait for the right conditions. They wait for motivation. They wait for a new year, a new month, a new opportunity. But reinvention doesn't respond to convenience. It responds to commitment. You don't drift into a better life, you decide into one. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you don't choose to reinvent yourself, circumstances will eventually force you to. The economy will shift. The company will restructure. The industry will evolve. The opportunity will dry up. And suddenly, change won't be optional anymore. Change by decision is powerful. Change by desperation is painful. When you decide to reinvent yourself before you have to, you move from survival mode to strategic mode. You're no longer reacting to life. You're directing it. You're no longer adjusting under pressure. You're expanding by vision. A decision is different from interest. A decision cuts off alternatives. When you decide to grow, you eliminate the option of staying the same. When you decide to upgrade your value, you eliminate the comfort of mediocrity. When you decide to become irreplaceable, you stop negotiating with excuses. Excuses are expensive. They cost you years. They cost you opportunities. They cost you confidence. You can always find a reason not to change. You're too busy, too tired, too uncertain, too comfortable. But understand this, every excuse is a vote for your current level. And if your current level isn't where you want to stay, you cannot keep voting for it. Reinvention begins with ownership. You stop blaming the market. You stop blaming your background. You stop blaming your boss, your upbringing, your past mistakes. Ownership is power. The moment you say, my results are my responsibility, you take control. Because if it's your responsibility, it's also within your influence. You may not control everything, but you control your preparation. You control your discipline. You control your willingness to stretch. And that's enough. The difference between people who stay replaceable and those who become rare is not talent. It's decisiveness. Rare individuals decide early and act consistently. They don't wait for applause. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait to feel fearless. They move while afraid. They move while uncertain. They move while uncomfortable. And every small act of courage compounds. Here's what most people misunderstand. Reinvention doesn't require a dramatic public announcement. It doesn't require quitting everything overnight. It starts internally. A quiet but firm declaration. I refuse to stay who I've been. From that moment forward, your standards shift. You wake up differently. You study differently. You spend differently. You speak differently because you've drawn a line. The old version of you no longer has voting rights. And yes, people around you may resist your growth. They may prefer the familiar version of you, but you cannot allow other people's comfort to dictate your future. If you stay small to stay accepted, you will stay replaceable. Reinvention requires courage because it separates you from your past patterns. It requires discipline because motivation fades. It requires vision because the results won't show up immediately. But here's what makes it powerful. Once you decide, momentum begins to build. One new habit leads to another. One new skill leads to new confidence. One new opportunity leads to expanded vision. And soon, the person you used to be feels foreign. That's how transformation happens, not in a single leap, but in consistent alignment with a committed decision. You don't need perfect clarity to start. You just need commitment. Clarity comes from movement. Confidence comes from action. Results come from repetition. The marketplace doesn't care about your intentions. It responds to your execution. And execution begins with a decision that is stronger than your emotions. There will be days you don't feel like growing. Days you don't feel like studying. Days you don't feel like pushing beyond comfort. But feelings are temporary. Decisions are durable. When you make a real decision, you act regardless of mood. And that's when you separate yourself. At the end of the day, you have two choices. You can let life shape you by default, or you can shape yourself by design. One leads to replaceability. The other leads to rarity. You don't wait to be chosen. You choose to evolve. Decide to reinvent yourself before life decides for you.